The year is 1959. The city is Las Vegas. In a plush, smoke-filled office at the Sands Hotel, a secret vote is taking place. The agenda, whether to destroy a man's career. The target, Sammy Davis Jr. The powerful men in the room have reached a verdict, guilty, of being too black, too bold, too in love with the wrong woman. His fate is sealed. But then a chair scrapes back. A voice, usually smooth as silk, cuts the tension like a knife. It's the last voice anyone expects to hear. It's Dean Martin, and he says just one word, no. Why would the easiest-going member of the Rat Pack risk everything? What did he know that the others were too afraid to admit? This is the story of a friendship that defied hell itself, and the night Dean Martin drew a line in the sand. To understand the betrayal, you must first understand the miracle that was Sammy Davis Jr. Picture Harlem in the 1930s, not the glamour but the grit. The air smells of boiled cabbage and hope, and in a cramped boarding house room, a boy of 3 is taught to dance, not for applause, for survival. His father, Sammy Davis Sr., and his uncle, Will Maston, are vaudeville ghosts, chasing a dying dream. Little Sammy becomes the dream. By 4, he's the star of the Will Maston trio, a child so talented he makes hardened showgirls weep. But there's a price. Every stage door has a back entrance for him. Every colored water fountain is a lesson in shame. He learns to conquer audiences with a smile that hides a bottomless hurt. The army in World War II only sharpens the lesson. He's beaten by white soldiers for his talent, for his mere existence. Yet he absorbs every skill, every impression, every note. He becomes a one-man cultural sponge, determined to be so good, so undeniably brilliant, that the world would have to look past the color of his skin. Then 1954, a screech of tires on a wet road, a car accident that nearly takes everything. He wakes in a hospital bed, his left eye gone. The world goes dark. What dream can survive this? But Sammy's will is made of something else. He relearns his craft, his balance, his very sight with a glass eye. The comeback is superhuman, and it catches the attention of the most powerful entertainer on earth, Frank Sinatra. Sinatra brings him into the light, into the inner circle, the summit, the Rat Pack. It seems like salvation, but in the blinding light of that privilege, a darker shadow waits, and it's growing closer. What Sammy didn't know was that in the world of Frank Sinatra, loyalty had limits, and he was about to crash into them. Enter the Rat Pack's playground, Las Vegas in its gangster glory heyday. The Sands is their castle, Frank is the king, Dean is the charming, seemingly carefree prince, and Sammy, he's the court jester, the prodigy, the living proof of Frank's benevolence. Night after night, the Copa room erupts. The jokes are risque, the chemistry is electric, the money flows like champagne. Sammy feels it, the belonging he's ached for his entire life. He's one of the guys. He calls Frank Charlie. He trades insults with Dean. He's in the family. But offstage, the rules are still written in an invisible, hateful ink. He can pack the casino, but he can't gamble at the tables. He can stay in the hotel, but only in a small room on a separate floor. He smiles through it. He has to, because this is the price of the dream. And then he meets her, May Britt, a vision of Swedish elegance and gentle grace. For Sammy, it's not just love. It's a revelation, a chance at a normal life, a beautiful partnership. He proposes, she says yes. And in that moment of pure joy, Sammy unknowingly pulls the pin on a grenade. The news hits the Vegas Strip not as a celebrity wedding, but as a declaration of war. The casino bosses, the shadowy figures with ties to the mob and the mayor's office, see only red, not anger, red ink. They fear the backlash from their high-rolling, segregated clientele. The whispers begin, he's a liability. Frank needs to control his pet. The word pet hangs in the air, ugly and true to their thinking. A meeting is called, a decision must be made. And Sammy, practicing his routines, laughing in his dressing room, is completely unaware that his brothers are about to decide his fate. Who would speak against him? And more chillingly, who would stay silent? Let's freeze that moment. October 14, 1959. Backstage at the Sands is a labyrinth of nerves and adrenaline. Sammy buffs his shoes, his mind on his cues. In another room, Frank Sinatra pours a drink, his face a mask. He's under pressure no one sees. The calls have been made, threats veiled as business advice. This marriage is bad for the town, Frank. It's bad for business. Your asterisk business. Frank, the man who broke racial barriers at clubs, who championed Sammy, is now caught between his friend and his empire. He believes in Sammy, but does he believe in him enough to risk it all? The other members of the inner circle are consulted. The vote is not a vote. It's a consensus built on fear and cold calculation. The edict comes down from the money men. Sammy Davis Jr. must be removed from the upcoming landmark summit show. He is to be phased out, quietly blackballed. His contract, a problem to be solved. When Frank relays this, the room holds its breath. The deed is done with a nod. It's business, it's Vegas, it's the way things are. They assume compliance. They assume everyone understands. But they made one fatal miscalculation. They forgot about Dean Martin, who seemed to float above the drama, who valued his golf game more than boardroom politics. As the meeting breaks, as men rise to make the terrible news official, Dean's voice stops them cold. What did he say that made hardened gangsters pause? Why was he the one to break rank? The answer lies not in Vegas, but in the coal mines of Ohio, a place Dean never forgot. Dean Martin's ease was a masterpiece of deception. He wasn't born into silk. He was born Dino Crosti in Steubenville, Ohio, to an Italian immigrant barber. The air there wasn't champagne, it was coal dust. He spoke Italian before English, faced prejudice for his heritage, and clawed his way up from nothing. He knew what it was to be the other. He carried that with him, hidden beneath the suave crooner persona. While Frank was the fiery general, Dean was the strategist, watching everything. And he watched Sammy. He saw not just the talent, but the exhausting effort behind it. He saw the way Sammy's smile would tighten when a joke at his expense went a beat too long. He saw the profound loneliness behind the greatest entertainer he'd ever shared a stage with. To Dean, Sammy wasn't a cause or a symbol. He was the hardest worker in the room. And in Dean's world, that commanded a respect that bordered on sacred. So in that office, when the sentence was passed on Sammy, Dean didn't see a business decision. He saw a betrayal of a fundamental code. He saw a good man being thrown to the wolves for convenience, and the easygoing Dino vanished. The man who stood up was the one who fought in back alleys of Steubenville. He looked at Frank, at the others, and issued not a plea but an ultimatum. The exact words are lost to history, but their meaning was clear. If he goes, I go. The air was sucked from the room. This wasn't sentimentality. This was a tactical nuclear strike. Dean Martin walking away would sink the summit. It would be a scandal far worse than an interracial marriage. He held all the power, and he just used it. But why would he stake his entire career? What did he see coming that the others missed? The truth is, Dean wasn't just saving Sammy, he was saving their very souls. The silence in that office was louder than any orchestra. All eyes swung to Frank Sinatra. The king was checkmated by his own prince. Frank's face, we can imagine, was a storm of emotions, anger, shock, perhaps a dawning shame. Dean's move reframed everything. This was no longer about managing a problem. It was about the public implosion of the Rat Pack. It was about Dean Martin, America's sweetheart, telling the world why he left. And Dean would tell it. He was quiet, but he wasn't afraid. In that electric moment, Frank had to choose between the pressures of the dark old world and the loyalty of the bright new world he'd helped create. He made his choice. He backed Dean. The plan to oust Sammy was dead, killed by a single act of courage. That night the show went on. The laughs rang out, the crowd roared. Sammy danced and sang with his usual blinding energy, shooting a grateful glance at Frank, unaware of the axe that had just been swung and shattered over his head. He didn't know that his true savior wasn't the man in the spotlight, but the man in the shadows, casually sipping his drink, having just fought a war no one would ever see. But secrets in Hollywood have a way of leaking out. Slowly, in whispers, the story reached Sammy. The betrayal carved a permanent scar on his heart. His relationship with Frank was never the same. There was always a hesitation, a doubt. But with Dean, something unspoken and eternal was forged. A bond built not on words, but on a single, defining action. Yet surviving the plot was one thing. The world outside that casino was still vicious. And Sammy's marriage to Mae Britt was about to unleash a hell that made Vegas mobsters look like choir boys. Could even Dean's protection shield him from the coming storm? November 13, 1960. Sammy Davis Jr. marries Mae Britt in a small ceremony. Frank Sinatra is his best man, a powerful public display of solidarity forced in part by Dean's earlier stand. But America is not ready. The hate mail is apocalyptic. They are called abominations. Threats arrive by the truckload. Film rolls dry up. Sponsors vanish. Protesters picket his performances. For Sammy, the highest point of his personal life triggers the deepest professional abyss. He is isolated, terrified for his new wife's safety. Through this fire, Dean remains a constant, not with grand gestures but with a quiet, steady presence. A phone call, a round of golf, a shared joke that says, "I'm here." He doesn't preach, he just is asterisk. He gives Sammy the greatest gift, normality in the hurricane. Meanwhile, the Rat Pack machine rolls on. They film Ocean's 11 asterisk, the ultimate symbol of their cool camaraderie. But watch the footage now. Look at Dean's eyes when Sammy is on. There's a watchfulness, a protective glint. He's the straight man in the comedy bits, but he's also a guardian. He never uses Sammy as the butt of a cruel joke. He deflects, he supports. He creates a space where Sammy can just be one of the guys, perhaps for the first time ever. This is Dean's legacy, not the ballads, not the laughs, but the safe harbor he built for a friend. Yet the pressure takes its toll. Sammy, desperate to belong, makes a desperate and heartbreaking decision. He converts to Judaism. It's a move that baffles the world. But was it a spiritual quest, or the final, tragic attempt of a man trying to find an identity the world wouldn't attack? He was running out of places to hide. The 1960s roll on. Sammy's star, through sheer force of will, begins to rise again. He becomes a titan of television, a Broadway sensation, a recording icon, but the cost is etched into his face. The smile is brighter, more desperate. The performances are more superhuman, as if he's trying to outrun the ghost of that 1959 meeting every single night. He lives under a microscope, his every move criticized. And through it all, Dean is there. Not always physically, but as a touchstone. When the civil rights movement reaches its crescendo, Sammy is torn. He's urged to march, to be more militant. But he's also terrified of alienating his white audience, the audience Dean helped him keep. He's caught between his conscience and his career, a pain Dean could never fully comprehend, but could always see. Dean, for his part, never sought credit. He never gave an interview about that night at the Sands. To him, it was simply what you did. You stood by your friend. It was the code of Steubenville, applied to the glittering stage of Vegas. While Frank's friendship with Sammy became a complex tapestry of love, guilt, and manipulation, Dean remained simple, clean, and true. But as the golden age of the Rat Pack faded, a new question emerged. Did saving Sammy's career ultimately cost him his peace? The relentless drive to prove himself, the addiction to work and approval, left Sammy emotionally hollow. He had won the battle, but was he losing the war for his own soul? And where was Dean when the final, tragic curtain began to fall? The late 1970s and 80s, the world changes, the Rat Pack is nostalgia. Frank is a legend touring alone. Dean has retreated, happiest on the golf course, his place in history secure but often misunderstood as just the drunk singer. And Sammy is still running. The marriages fail, the health declines, the financial troubles mount. The once indestructible dynamo is a man haunted by the very fame he conquered. In his quieter moments, he must have reflected on that circle of friends. He knew the truth, he knew who had wavered, and he knew with absolute certainty who had not. In 1987, at a televised tribute to Frank Sinatra, an ailing Sammy gives one of his last great performances. He sings Mr. Bojangles, a song about a tired dancer, a lifetime of performances, and a deep, abiding loneliness. As he sings, the years melt away. You see the child from Harlem, the soldier, the one-eyed wonder, the man in love, the survivor. It's all there. And watching from the audience, Dean Martin, older, softer, but his eyes are locked on his friend. There are no jokes now, just a look of profound, painful respect. He sees the cost. He sees the lifetime of exhaustion in Sammy's every move. And in that look, you understand everything. That was the trade. Dean gave Sammy the stage. Sammy gave his life to it. Was it worth it? Did the price of belonging ever truly get paid off? The answer is in Sammy's eyes as he finishes the song, a mixture of triumph and bottomless fatigue. Dean Martin passed away on Christmas Day, 1995. Sammy Davis Jr. had left us 5 years earlier in 1990, finally succumbing to the decades of physical and emotional strain. In the end, their bond outlived the era that created it. This story isn't just about one night in Vegas. It's about the quiet heroism that defines a real man. Frank Sinatra gave Sammy fame, but Dean Martin gave him something far more precious, dignity. In a world ready to discard him, Dean reached out a hand and said, "Not this man, not tonight." He fought not for a cause, but for a person. That's a different kind of courage. It's the courage of the quiet conscience. Today we remember the Rat Pack for the laughs, the style, the swing, but beneath that stylish surface ran undercurrents of fear, prejudice, and compromise. In the middle of it all stood two men from opposite worlds, bound by a shared understanding of the outsider. One performed his struggle for all to see. The other masked his with a joke and a drink. But when the moment of truth arrived, only one had the strength to be simple and direct and brave. So the next time you watch an old clip, see past the cigarette smoke and the tuxedos. Look at Dean's face when Sammy takes the stage. You're not just looking at a friend, you're looking at a man who once stood in the darkness and chose to be the only light. But this begs a final, haunting question. How many other stories like this are buried in the golden age of Hollywood? How many secrets of loyalty and betrayal died with the legends? We've only opened one file. The Hollywood Untold files are vast. What about the night Frank Sinatra was ordered to hand over fellow star to the mob, and the terrible choice he made? Or the hidden tragedy of Judy Garland, where the studio's cruelty was far worse than any yellow brick road? The stories of courage, cowardice, and secrets sworn to the grave are waiting. This was the story of the night the Rat Pack almost shattered. But what about the day it truly did? Betrayals that ran even deeper. The legacy of these men is written in spotlight and shadow, and we are here to explore every hidden corner. If this journey behind the curtain moved you, then you know this is just the beginning. Your click decides what case we open next. Did this story change how you see Dean Martin? Could you have stood up like he did? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to witness more secrets pulled from the vault, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Because history isn't just what's recorded, it's what was hidden, and we are just getting started. This is the Hollywood Untold Files. Until next time, remember, the legend is only half the story. The rest is here, waiting for you.